Sweet. All right. It's been a while since I've been the one streaming. Oh, I was just caught up in Alex's mix there. It's always refreshing to hear some cool new music from him. And I'm excited to work on it today. So, welcome to. Looks like we got a couple people in here. Appreciate that. Hello to. Looks like we have at least one or two first time callers. I don't know about long time listeners. Um, cool. Well, I will just go ahead and jump in. Hey, Jarhead, how you doing? I'm doing okay. I'm here. I'm excited. So that's that's a start. I love this part of my job. You know, we work on so many different things. All of us at Pocket Bard work on so many different things, and I feel like for me, this is the part of my work that's like the I don't know, it's just it engages a part of my brain that I really enjoy engaging, and it feels like creatively fulfilling and technical, and yeah, so it's cool. It's cool. So we're going to be mastering some of this music. Now, normally when you're mastering, you don't get a bunch of tracks like this, right? Normally you get a single stereo track and you got some stuff to work with, but Pocket Bard's a little special. Obviously, we do some cool things with our implementation, and so right up until it hits, right up until you hit play, a lot of it's got to stay as multiple different tracks. So we gotta work through some of that today and make this kind of fit our vision for what's going to end up in the software. Starting here with just the general Desert Explorer track, and I kind of this is a new pack, so I kind of wanted to take a few minutes to experiment a little bit with the overall sound. I'm gonna trying to think. I think I'm gonna go through a little bit of my normal process with this, and I will listen and kind of talk through as I make a couple of creative choices. Um, Otherwise, maybe let me know in the chat if you want me to explain more of what I'm doing, or if you want to just sit back and listen. And maybe if you're on like nice headphones or nice speakers or something, maybe as I'm like toggling things on and off, you can kind of listen carefully and see if you can hear the difference, and let me know what you like, which way. There's going to be a lot of options here. So I'm going to start off with I have this preset mastering chain. It's going to take a second because I'm loading a bunch of plugins at once. I have this preset mastering chain. I'm going to take a couple of these things out as we go. First thing is we're just going to get a good level. So I know I just kind of did this in the starting soon, but we're just going to listen to this track all the way through. We're going to throw a meter up here, and just so that I'm at a consistent level, I'm going to try to get everything down to about minus 18 LUFS. So this is going to be the whole track. Think of it like the highest intensity level, and then this is everything like super raw. So it's not going to come to you in the app this way. This is like, to be honest, Alex's mixes are fairly polished. So like, there's not going to be a huge difference, but if you're an audio nerd like me, you're going to hear some things where you might go, oh, okay, I see the choice there, I understand, but maybe that won't fit the context of trying to package it with everything else. Or there might be dynamic range. We're going to be listening for kind of overall tonal balance and fitting with kind of the Pocket Bard sound that we usually go for. So I'll stop talking for a second. We're just going to let this play through and get some levels on it. Wow, that ended up really close to minus 18, so just going to do that and bump it right there. And I think that should be good. I wrote a couple of notes here. We'll maybe come back to that. I think the big thing I want to do is look for a couple of things we can use to kind of make the sound have a little bit more of that desert character. Now, the first thing that comes to mind for me is sand, right? There's a lot of almost like musical elements in here that could remind you of the kind of grittiness of sand, the fine texture. You know, when we translate a lot of those kind of tactile things or visual or, basically any other sense into audio, there are a lot of associations we can make. So for me, that sandy texture is going to be the kind of sizzly, sparkly high end, but not necessarily like long sustained high end like you might hear from like a choir or something like that. I heard a couple of cool like little cymbal things where it was maybe like brushes or something on a cymbal. I think that's what we're going for. And oh, yep, and Alex just confirmed uh, that was exactly it. So we were on the same page there. And then the other thing that I noticed that I definitely want to kind of pull forward as a little bit of a context for desert. When I think desert, I think of like rolling dunes and not just the like harshness of midday sun, but also the beauty of like a sunset over this uneven terrain, as well as the blowing wind in the night. And to me, I think a lot of that kind of like really pillowy low end stuff, I think that's also going to place us in the desert in a really beautiful way. So I want to listen through and find like a good characteristic moment that I'm gonna then kind of repeat through as I play with a couple of things to try to bring those out, and then we'll go back and kind of go from there. Now, one more thing to say: Alex has already done a lot of this work in the composition phase. Like, I'm the last 5% here, if that. So most of this work is already done for us. I'm sure Alex could talk much more in depth and have a lot more options for exactly how to bring some of that stuff forward. But I think somewhere in here is where I want to check out. I think this is a good spot. Try smokers. Some like shakers or something in the back there. May also give us some good kind of sandy texture. I think let's go back to this spot. Yeah. Cool. I'm gonna use this little 5-measure loop. No. Oh, I just crashed it. Let's get that back. The problem with running so many things on my computer all at once. Luckily, Reaper is pretty forgiving. Look at that. It even kept exactly where we were. Plugins and all. Just not the window size. Whoops. All right. No machine guns in the desert. Not in this pack. I don't know, maybe. Maybe at your home game. Okay. Oh, that's my dog barking. Definitely use the shimmer setting there. I'm not even sure we really need focus. I'll just pull it out for a moment. Starting to get there. I'll come back to that. I love the Clariphonic. I'm not 100% sure it's getting me exactly what I want. I'm thinking we might want... Nope, that's not what I meant. Let's try a Pultec. That's definitely getting right up in there with those cymbals. I'm gonna make it a little too harsh and pull it back. Yeah, like that. To me, that seems like too much. I can also do that to kind of darken it, which is a weird kind of like push-pull thing that's common practice with the Pultec. I'm also gonna just sanity check here, make sure I'm not... Okay. I already think we've done a little too much. Also listening to on that melody on the plucked strings that we can hear the kind of string sound in there. Let's ignore the high end for a moment and go back to the low end, and the Pultec actually might be a good candidate for that. So what I'm hearing here, I'm going for like the super deep kind of almost sub bass low end to try to just make sure things are clear. Alex did a really good job here of separating out the kind of, you can almost think of it as like percussive low bass, like the thump you might feel in your chest from like a kick drum or like a big orchestral bass drum or something like that. And then there's this really nice low synth that's also in that range, but it's sustained, right? It's not like a of air. It's this kind of constant woo that's nice and low. And a lot of times you got to be careful because those things can fight with each other. So I'm trying to listen through at a couple of different spots to see if I think they're fighting and if as I go through and kind of shape the tone of the track, if I'm gonna like accidentally bring any of that out that I need to just be, aware of. So here's the kind of more low sustained low end. And then we get a couple of thumps here and there in front of it. So a big one right there. It's cool. It doesn't seem to be fighting much at all, which I really like. I think the reason that it works is because the kind of thump that I'm hearing is just the attack of the bass switching notes. And that's why it's not fighting, which is great. And it happens to land, not happens to, it was composed to land right when there's some percussion hitting. So it sounded to me at first like percussion. And it just works really well. I don't think I need to do anything there. Well, I'm happy with that. Let's see. Is there any reason you chose Reason, PT, or other more? Okay. Audio first DAWs. Okay, so there's a question in the chat basically asking why I chose this digital audio workstation. So this is Reaper. There is actually another one called Reason that I don't use. I like Reaper over Pro Tools in particular because, from my understanding, it was built around the needs of a digital audio workstation rather than trying to emulate the functionality of like a analog console. So like when Pro Tools came about at first, and this is just my understanding, the way the design worked was so that people who were used to working on analog consoles could now boot up Pro Tools and understand what they were seeing and understand what they were doing, and they would have a familiar workflow. The problem with that is in the digital world, inheriting an analog workflow means that you're not necessarily like you're just kind of blindly inheriting something from a different domain, whereas there are so many different options and things you can do in digital that are not necessarily part of analog that to me that's kind of like having the form first and then putting the function underneath it. I've spent plenty of time in Pro Tools. you know, for whatever problems I have with it, I'm not militant about my opinions on DAWs. I know some people really love to fight about it. Ultimately, um, you know, that's like that's like guitarists fighting over what's the best guitar. Like at the end of the day, what matters so much more is how well you play. So the best DAW is whatever one you're used to. For me, Reaper stood out for a whole bunch of reasons. A lot of them super technical. Like I love that you can do. Let's pull up the mixer. I'll just show an example because I love it. I love that you can do things like let's say this was a mix and I had like a reverb send and I wanted to route some reverb. First of all, it's so easy to route. I can literally just click and drag from this routing window or the button that pulls up the routing window onto the track. And here's my send. And I've got all sorts of options. I can send from certain channels to other channels. I can send, you know, the normal stuff, but I can also do things like make it mono, or I can invert the polarity. I can pan it on the send itself. I can do sends that are MIDI. I can have you know, automation on this send. There's a whole bunch of stuff that just, to me, Reaper makes super easy and lets you do kind of fun, nerdy, complex stuff that I like to do in a way that you're just like, you're not tying your hands. The other cool thing about Reaper is, for anybody who's used to this, and I promise I'll go back to something a little less like ultra nerdy in a second, but actually I don't even need a new track for this. Notice that we've got stereo audio files on this track. Let's say I had some other audio file that on something like Pro Tools, if I wanted it to be, let's just let's say it was a mono audio file, right? First of all, I couldn't have done what I just did on Pro Tools because stereo audio tracks and mono audio tracks are different. But check this out. They're on the same channel. And on top of that, if I draw something in here, hey, there's a MIDI item on the same channel. Why is it so small? There's a MIDI item on the same channel as a mono audio file, a stereo audio file. I can do mix and match, and Reaper's just like, yeah, I got it. I'll do what you want. Whatever, you're the boss. Pro Tools, I mean, you just can't do that. So there's just many things that I really like about Reaper. But don't get me wrong, like, again, it's so much about who you are as an engineer, not what tools you use. All right, let's go back to our pillowy bass. I did think of one other thing I wanted to try in here. Now we're getting a little bit more into the territory of like defining the sound of the Desert Pack. Certainly I've just been kind of looking at a couple of tools, seeing if I could bring out some stuff that's already there. Now I want to try something that's going to potentially add something that did not exist before. I'm going to pick some distortion. I think I'm going to go for the LG Drive from Kush Audio. I really love the Kush Audio plugins. And let's go to like one of their mix bus presets just to get, I don't know, a starting point, call it. And I'm going to just play with this for a second, see if I find any inspiration, and once I find it, I'll post hoc explain what my intentions obviously originally were. I'm definitely not going into this totally unknown. I am. don't know why, and this is one of the things I love about this. Turning this on makes me happy. Like I feel different about and it's like my ears are trying to tune in on different little spots and be like, is that what I'm hearing? Is that what I'm hearing? What is making me do that? I don't know, but I like the sound of it. Oh, here, you know what? Another cool Reaper feature that just makes things super easy. Uh, Let me see if I can explain this in a way. Like, I don't want to just assume that everybody's going to immediately follow, but at the same time, I also don't want to talk down to anybody who's watching this as an audio expert or nerd and like make you feel like I'm anyway. This is a cool feature when you add a plugin like this. So like this whole plugin chain is going on all the tracks. All these tracks are being summed together and being sent through all of these effects in order from top to bottom here. This one in particular is adding something, and my ears are having a hard time pinpointing exactly what the difference is for me to explain it to you. One of the things that Reaper lets you do is this thing called Delta Solo, which means it's going to take the dry signal without this plugin, and it's going to take the wet signal, meaning with the plugin, and it's going to basically subtract, right? If you're an audio nerd, you already know how this works, but it's going to subtract so that the only thing you hear is the stuff it's changing. Anything that has been untouched is going to stay exactly, is going to be nulled out. It's going to be silent. So you're only going to hear the difference with what this thing is doing. So if I turn on Delta Solo, we can hear, okay, a bunch of the low end is just still there. That means it's probably like changing the phase of it or maybe changing some volume. But I'm also hearing that kind of, ooh, hear that like little distortion in the kind of mid to high mids. You should be hearing basically like a crackling. Like it should almost sound, if you're like, I don't know what he's talking about, that sounds really weird to me, it sounds like it's broken. Yeah, that's exactly the sound I'm talking about. I'm adding some of that on purpose, and it's actually, when I turn this off, it's gonna actually be really quiet. I'm adding that on purpose, and for whatever reason, our ears like the sound of imperfect audio breaking up sometimes. And so that's what this is adding to this. And I think it's adding it in a really cool way. I think one of the things I'm looking for is a candidate for defining the sound of the Pocket Bar Desert Pack, right? We do this with all of our content packs where there's some piece of the chain, actually at every level of the production process, there's something usually small that's like, this is what we use for Fantasy Essentials, so that when we add stuff later, when we update things, if you're hearing something, you kind of are cued in to where it's coming from. So you're going to hear the music of this and go, oh, that's the Pocket Bar Desert Pack. Like that feels like the Pocket Bar Desert Pack. And it's because we find little stuff like this and go, okay, that's the character we're adding. It's small for people like me. I love doing it, but sorry, let's use our ears. I'm talking a lot. The next thing I'm going to do is turn it on and off. You'll see when this is darkened, it's off. Here it's on, just so we can hear the difference. Let's go to a different part of the track. Yeah, it's super subtle. There's some points where I was turning it on and off, and I was like, I don't know if I can really hear what it's doing there. But I like it, and we're gonna keep it. There were definitely some points where I was just like, yeah, that's nice. Cool. I think that's definitely a good candidate for defining the sound of desert. Let's go through a couple of other things just to kind of put this into what will probably be close to its final shape for heading into the next phase, where the files grow up and they get to go to college. I don't know. This is Ozone. Yes, I'm still on Ozone 9. I'm always a little iffy on this. I like using the master assistant because I'm not the world's greatest mastering engineer, and I like to at least hear what its opinion is, but I don't know, probably 60%, 70% of the time, I just totally undo everything it says. So I don't know if this is hurting me or not, but let's try it. It's going to get really loud for a second, so I'm turning the master level down while it does that. It makes me wonder what they're up to now with Ozone. Like, I'm sure with all of this AI technology and machine learning stuff that's coming out, they're definitely trying to build this into mastering tools, but I just haven't seen what they're doing. All right, let's pull this all the way back up. Interesting. So it didn't like all the low end here. Just 1 dB, but it's just turning it down 1 dB. I think I'm gonna compromise. We'll go, oops. Go halfway. Yeah. This is kind of the range I was aiming at turning up next. Because we kind of treated the really highs, and you can see it's not trying to pull any of that up. It's happy with it. It's mostly trying to bump the like high mids. That's this range. For those following along at home. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna keep that one. That's not bad. I might go back later and use a different EQ for this. We'll see. Dynamic EQ. I just want to check why it's doing any of these. I don't think we need that one. I'll leave. And I'm gonna use something else for levels anyway, so get rid of the maximizer. Okay, so that was all right. Let's hear more like from the beginning. Make sure that didn't do anything catastrophic. So I'm going to turn everything we did on and off a couple of times, just as a matter of like recalibrating our ears and saying, oh, this is how far we've come. Gained a little volume. I'll pull back on that. I'm happy with this, with where this is going. We haven't really had to do a lot, and I do want to just try one thing. Maybe this is silly, but let's just try it. Yeah, that's too crunchy. Sweet bone-dry desert minis? That sounds awesome. I would love to incorporate more minis in the in-person sessions that my wife and I play. Even though we play in person, we've been using Foundry VTT, which is awesome. I love Foundry. But there's something cool about having like the physical minis. And I feel like my ultimate gaming table, if I were able to, if I could afford to do this, would be to have one of those tables that has the monitor like built in and use something like Foundry. For me, probably Foundry, but you know, to have the maps and then use physical minis instead of tokens in Foundry. I think there'd be some cool synergy there. And I know a lot of people do that. I've never, yeah, I think it would be cool. Anyway, all right. Oh, gotta change that. So the next thing that I want to do is bring the levels up. Now, this is the trickiest part of this process because these tracks are separate versus, you know, in a typical mastering context, I could now say, okay, I'm going to now bring this up to a competitive level where when we upload it to a streaming service, without the streaming service having to change anything, it's now going to sound the same loudness and intensity and energy as every other track that's in a playlist next to it. With Pocket Bard, we have a lot more control than that, but also we don't get a single, you know, as you can see here, like there's all these audio files. And so when these get exported, these settings are only going to be, it's only going to get it part of the way there. The very last step in the mastering chain is actually done in our middleware engine in Wwise. And it's mostly just limiting, like there's nothing super fancy in there, but it does kind of round out things at the end. I'm going to go here for something a bit loud, like especially considering how many tracks there are here, and I might check this one individually. I'm going to go for something a bit louder than it'll actually end up in the final product. And each individual track will kind of be dialed back a little bit, and then when you add them all together, it'll once again get a little bit loud, but not quite as loud as I'm about to make it. That's just a technical fluke of, or not fluke, but it's just a technical hurdle for this kind of process. So I will also turn the master level down so I don't blow up your TV speakers or whatever. Let's see what we got. We'll go to the loud parts here. Yes, I also do all the Wwise implementation. That's weird. Anybody listening on headphones really carefully in that moment, that was not your headphones like batteries dying. That was okay. I might have to just back it off. We'll see what happens. Where is that coming from? So what I'm hearing when I put everything together, there's like it's the strings. When I put everything together, there's something in the strings here that's making the mastering compressor like pull down on everything, but it's not even between left and right. And so it's making the whole mix kind of like wobble side to side. And that's why I described it as like if you were using like battery powered headphones, it would almost sound like the battery was draining on one side or another as it shifts back and forth. And I need to figure out how to not have it sound like that. Here's the just so you can hear that effect again. Again, if you're in like headphones or nice speakers, listen carefully to. It might even help to like close your eyes and listen to where you feel like the center of the mix is. This will make it even more pronounced. It's like right there, it goes off to the left and then the right. Yeah, so, all right. Can't be having that. I'm thinking what we want to do. Don't worry, Alex, it's not that bad. We can fix it. We can fix it in mastering. Otherwise, I'll send it back to you. But what I'm going to do is go down to the melody track itself and do a little bit of compression ahead of time so that the final compressor doesn't catch it like that. And the one that I'm going to put in ahead of time, I'm going to sync the left and the right so that if either side goes down, they both come down together so you don't get that weird pulling from like one side to the other. Thanks for sticking around, Jarhead. Glad you enjoyed it, and catch you next time. What was I looking for? Fairchild. Good question on the level for RMS for pocket bar tracks. I actually use LUFS. I tend to really like looking at the integrated LUFS across the track and the loudness range. And typically coming into mastering, I'll go for like -18 before all the plugins. That's what I was doing here because it was at -18.1. So I bumped it up by 0.1. And then I try not to change the levels with any of the plugins. Some of that's going to be inevitable, but I try to compensate for it. And then we actually just changed some things. So something you'll notice when in the next couple of Pocket Bard updates, this is all going to kind of get rolled out a little bit piecemeal. But one of the things you'll notice is that the music's a little bit quieter than it was before. Just 2 dB. So like, unless you're unless you're like measuring and comparing one right next to the other, you honestly probably won't notice. But what that lets us do is keep a little bit more dynamic range, especially when it comes to the sound effects. So the problem I was having is I really wanted things like the explosion one shot to really like punch, and because of the level that we had the music at, like we could only, there's only so much space to have audio. There's only so much headroom that you have. You can only crowd the loudness so much. And Alex and I were talking about it, and we went, why don't we just lower everything, like all the music and sound effects and everything, by 2 dB? And then any stuff that we want to feel louder than anything else, we'll pull it back up, because we'll give ourselves the breathing room. And because there's like, we have total control over all the audio in the Pocket Bard app. It's not like there's some other audio in the Pocket Bard app that's going to be louder, and you're going to be subject to that like psychoacoustic effect where louder sounds better. So we were shooting for around minus 14 lufs in the app, but we just went down to minus 16 so that we can have that little extra push and little room to play with the sound effects. So coming out of this, I'm looking for a little bit more for technical reasons, but I'm not super worried about it in here, because eventually I'm just going to tweak the levels in Wwise to get the exact range I want. I'm much more concerned here about dynamic range and the overall tone. Hopefully that answers your question. My dog likes that answer too. She's back there barking. Okay, so we're going to take this melody and try to flatten it. Sorry, I keep moving plugins off the screen. Hard to make everything fit when the plugin window is so huge. You know, they could probably get rid of a couple of these screws. I don't think that's going to hold it to the screen any better. I can also do this. All right, let's go to that problem part and dial in. Oh, and I know I like 1 and 2 here for this job. Actually, I might be able to just isolate this frequency. I'm hearing it stick out. So we're going to see if we can just grab it. It's right there. So this is a fun exercise for your ears. If you listen here, listen to like the main pitch that's standing out. Now, keep that in mind. I'm going to unsolo this and listen to the whole melody and listen to how much louder that pitch is than everything else. Right there. That was the problem spot. And the fun thing too, I was doing that by ear, but you can also see it on the meter. If you look in here, there's like this little peak that jumps up above everything else. Right there. Okay. I'm going to try to pull that down. I'm sorry, Alex. That feels a little more balanced to me. I want to hear what it sounds like if I automate this in and out. Hmm. Let's do this. Let's tweak that. And then another cool thing about Reaper. This is every single sound effect. Every single plugin gets this little mix knob up here where you can change, even for plugins that don't have it. This does actually. It has a dry mix, so they're separate. But you can just change the amount that you're hearing of something. So, and you can also automate everything, like literally everything. And all you have to do is like touch a control that you want to automate, go up to param, and it says last touched, and you can make an envelope for it. You can do like parameter modulation to an LFO. Notice that EQ gain there is coming on and off because I just added an LFO to a parameter. Like you can just do that with everything. So one more reason I really love Reaper over some of the other options out there. All right. Getting a little technical here, but I'm going to try to explain what I'm doing. So I really only want this EQ fix that I'm doing to come in right at that part where there's the problem. And I'll put a marker at the problem. So there's that little red marker there. And that's where I want it fully in. And it's only a problem for like, you know, a little over 2 measures. And so after that, I don't need it changing the rest of the music. So here's what I'm going to do. During those 2 measures, I'm going to add some automation points. Then I'm going to slowly fade the whole effect out over the course of like a measure or 2. That should be at 0%. And then over here, I can add a bypass as well. Great. So you see here where this little like pink rectangle is, that's where the effect is actually on and processing. But until the purple line gets up, we can't hear it. So it'll slowly fade in, be fully in when we need it to fix the problem, and then kind of fade itself back out so that it's not affecting too much. But I couldn't suddenly have it come in and out because you would actually notice, like you would hear like a pop or a click or something. Oh, well, just heard a pop there. What? Oh, you know what? Let me use this bypass. Other way. let's see if that fixed our problem on the whole thing. Let's turn this back up. I might still, in the long run, I might still send that back to Alex to have him fixed, but I feel like I'm like 75% happy with that as a fix. All right. Let's finish this up. This is another one of those things that kind of, the position of this defines a little bit of the sound. Like you can make it super dark or super bright. I think it still needs a little bit of that brightness. We're also pulling up a little bass here. In general, it's mostly set to settings I typically like. Long fade at the end. Cool. I love that bass sound. But it is fighting this just a hair. I'm gonna try to find the spot where it's fighting. What's actually right for this? What is right for this? Oh, we have so many options. I'm gonna go with this good old-fashioned re-EQ. We have added a lot of character. I don't need something with too much more character at the moment. And I think what's happening is kind of zero in on the spot. I think, yeah, right in there. Even just that, like 2 or 3 dB. Going a little louder. I feel like that made all the difference. Based on the implementation, let me double check before I put my foot in my mouth. Yeah, that bass is not always in, but for that layer 2, so we should really be checking layer 2 level 1 against like the bass at a slightly lower level. Do it this way. That's gonna be fine now. Yeah. When that EQ is not in, they fight a little. I don't even know how to describe the feeling. I think it's one of those things that's like the qualia of being able to pinpoint what I mean by they're fighting. It's just like, yeah, it's a matter of training your ears. Like those are the minute details that at the end of the day build up to something really polished. All right. So to wrap this up, I do want to I want to double check the implementation diagram. Okay. Match volumes there. So yeah, that's one thing I want to do for sure. Let's go to melody first. Grab our loudness extension and analyze. And between these two, it looks like level 1 is about 2 dB quieter. So let's, if we bring this up by 2, now we got to compare and just make sure this isn't crazy. So what this is going to do is when this particular layer goes from like one of its higher intensity, or from this higher intensity version down to the lower intensity, which is like still at the top end of the intensity slider, we want to make sure when it transitions, you don't get a weird jump up or down in volume. So I'm checking, especially at these loudest points, I'm going to check and go back and forth with just a really rough cut and see, do they seem like the volume is really different. Is that the same? Is that the same frequency? About 400 hertz? No, okay. I was gonna say that would be. Where's our automation item? that's only in level 1. Doesn't stand out there. Like, it's not whistling in level 2. I mean, it's still, obviously it's still there, but I'm not even gonna dynamic EQ that. I'm just gonna pull it down. We're gonna call that good. Sweet. Let's check. Layer 2. Yeah, layer 2 is the other one. We want to check the same way. Once again, about 2 dB quieter, but we're gonna check with our ears, not with our eyes. Yeah, I think this will be good. Okay, and then for layer 1, we actually might want a little drop in volume. It's probably good. I can also tweak this in Wise. This is good. I think let me just do this for safety. This will just make sure we don't go past a particular threshold. Here's the before. After. I think this is going to sound good. It's definitely super hot right now in terms of levels, but when we listen to the individual tracks, I think that's going to come out at the right level. Yeah, I think we're good here. So that's Desert 1. I'm going to render just the basic high intensity version as a stereo mix. The nice thing is we'll get a couple of statistics out of this. It's not super useful. I mean, it is. It's not useless, but just we want to balance between our ears and our eyes with these things. So, all right. Well, here's Desert Explorer 1. Curious what this says about it. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like -13, -12. Doesn't stand out to me as like looking funny in the waveforms. Everything feels good. I think it sounds good. It's definitely super hot there. It's not going to sound like that in the app. It's going to be a little more subdued, which will be good. So, all right. I think that's going to go ahead and wrap up today's stream. I'm going to get ready. I'm going to be over on the 3D Dice stream playing this TTRPG, The Mountain Witch, which I have never played before, and it'll be super fun. I'm excited. So definitely check that out. I believe it's twitch.tv/ hold on, I'll get it right. Yeah, dddice_app. And we'll be on in about a little over half an hour, right at 8 o'clock. No, 8:30. Clearly, I am very well prepared. I know my call time is 8 p.m., so I think we're starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Check it out. It's going to be fun. I'm going to be playing Dr. Wayne Runehart. And we'll see how it goes. So, all right. So, let's, yeah, to play us out. What does that mean, to play us out? Anyway, all right. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Sweet. And, oh, one more question. Frickin' Shred says, are you going to do the Wise implementation live? I wasn't planning on it, but maybe in the future. I think, let me think about that. I know that would be interesting, and I know I'll talk with Alex about it. We can discuss it. Anyway, cool. So, remember everybody, there's no words on it. What does that mean, to play us out? And see you next time. It didn't keep the audio. Whatever, the stream's ending. Bye-bye. We'll do it live. Exactly.